today? Can we do it today? You're live. Welcome to WKIM Media Network. And I'm your host, Marcia Jews, and we are here with Dr. Kelly.
Hi, Marcia.
Mm. Hi, how you doing? Hello.
Great. National Dog Day. Marcia.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me though?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's talk about Dr. Kelly Fishman. Tell us about yourself and what made you decide to do this with your life?
Well, aside from the always loving animals, and animals are the best things in our lives, which most people think, I was really inspired when I was working for a veterinarian, and I met a dog who the pet parents had to say goodbye to him because he had slowed down so much in terms of his mobility. He couldn't get up. He was having a hard time going up and down the stairs, that sort of thing. And I felt really bad about that. And I actually learned that there's an area of veterinary medicine that can make those dogs better and make them stronger and make them live longer. And I really realized that I had to be part of that and help dogs as much as I could because they give us so much love, and not only just our dogs, but our kitties too. And the best that, we all want to provide the best that we can for them.
And that's really true. I had several dogs. One, I had a boxer lady,
Okay.
and the other one was Francois, an apricot poodle, who could jump to the top of of the front door at least 100 times. But we loved him. And I think what's so beautiful about being a parent of a dog is that they really walk in love. They really care about their owners. What
Yeah.
made you yeah, what made you decide to get into taking care of and dealing with animals?
It was one of those things where I wanted to have a career where I worked with my hands a lot. And believe it or not, I needed to be a healer, but I was like, where can I be a healer where I could actually do use physical touch to make that better? And that, aside from being a physical rehabilitation and that rehabilitation vet, and it's really obvious now, so I do things like massage and exercises and things like that. It's also just being a veterinarian. We're
Mm.
really lucky. A lot of the human doctors, when you see a doctor, you see him for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. You don't know them very well. They barely even put their stethoscope on you nowadays. But most dogs and cats, when they go to the vet, they're still really lucky that they get a really full physical exam. They get lots of attention, and I just think that's a really great kind of quality of medicine that we've lost a little bit in the human side. So that was one of the reasons, when I was deciding to be a vet or pursue other areas of healthcare, that was something that I really was drawn to be a veterinarian.
Well, I used to have a couple of dogs growing up, and what I found is that they really became family.
Mhm.
They acted on their own. They handled their business, which was really interesting. They knew then when it was time to eat and where's my food and why isn't it here now kind of thing, that when in an attitude. But also it's just the love and the kindness that comes through those animals. And I don't know that we have really looked at how animals can change the lives of people who are living alone.
I mean, there are I don't want to bore you with like studies, but like there are studies showing that people who have animals obviously have like stress-free lives, but they have better immune systems. If you have like a serious injury or a stroke or a heart attack, if you have a pet, you recover quicker, you recover faster. I mean, there's so many amazing things like and benefits and that they do for us. And it really is like, it truly is amazing. And you're right. Like I have a cat right now, and I want to think that he chooses to be be with me, and he's just, it is really lovely when they come up and they like also seek out your attention and like show their thanks and appreciation, whether it's like a dog just like giving you a little bit of a head bump, or like a hand bump saying like I love you. I used to have a Doberman when I was growing up, a Doberman pinscher, and the dog used to come and actually put his little mouth around my arm and give me like a little like hug. It's kind of Adobe. And then my cat, the same thing, just comes up sometimes as I've been stressed or tired or sick, and they just know for some reason, and they come up, and my cat would just lie in my chest and purr. Like, yeah, so they really are amazing.
I like that term, that they know. They can sense when you're down or when you're happy, or you can tell by how fast that tail is ripping back and forth because they see you, and just when they are ready for food, and oh wait a minute, how come you taking so long? Bring my food to my little place. What are you doing? And then I've had 2 dogs as an sort of adult, but you could really tell that those 2 animals at different times, right? But at different times, they're still bringing the love. They can still determine when you're unhappy. They still can determine when you are really excited. They can discern all of that, which I think is fascinating. And how do we do that?
Well, a lot of it is they're sensing. Apparently, when humans are, and I don't know all of this, but part of what I understand is that dogs really see their world not just with their eyes, but with their noses. So when they've tried to understand how dogs like interact with their world, they're mapping things with their sense of smell as much as they are with like their vision. So what that means, if someone is stressed out or you have anxiety, like they can actually smell it on you. And we know this because, so much work that's gone on to those dogs that are not, the medical support dogs, like the ones who can smell someone who's about to have a seizure or the changes in a diabetic's blood sugar. Your dog can smell that. So yeah, it is pretty amazing. They are so tuned into us. It's always funny. I always like, I say to my cat, I'm like, like his name's Nelson. I was like, Nelson, do you speak English? And he's like, of course he does. I don't speak cat, but he speaks English. Our dogs speak English. They also like understand and speak our emotions and all that sort of thing.
And how do you navigate in households where you have young children and helping them to groom themselves to be the proper pet? I don't know that everybody has prepared their youngsters for what we're really supposed to be doing in taking care of some of those animals. And I think that's also very important.
Yeah, and especially as they get older, and they just, their health deteriorates and they need medication. I had a type of family when I grew up. I was responsible for a lot of, childcare of my siblings, a lot of the household chores, and then also just like sharing responsibility for like the animals in our home. And I think that was a good thing that my family did. So I really think that parents who encourage their children to play an active role in like their pet's life and their care, I think it's really good. It teaches responsibility, which is great for the kids.
I think it's also good for elders.
Oh yeah.
And the management of those animals and the love with them is so powerful, because many of whom are home by themselves now. And how do you deal with that? What do you do to make certain that they're all okay? And those animals help. They really do. Francois was my dog, and Francois would jump up and down literally to the top of the front door. We had a porch, enclosed porch growing up.
Mhm.
And Francois would just, and he would just keep doing it if it's the mailman or the people or the post office or what. Francois would let everybody in the whole doggone street know that somebody is over at Marsha's house, you know. But he became a member of the family, basically.
Yeah.
And that's the power of it.
Yeah. And that was the poodle. That was the poodle you were talking about, the apricot poodle.
Yeah.
And every poodle, I've treated a couple poodles in my career as a veterinarian rehab vet, and every single one of them will just do that. Like they're like deer. Like they would do that 12-foot jump up and almost like be a little gazelle. They're amazing. Standard poodles are amazing athletes.
Yes.
Really truly are. And people don't understand that sometimes when they get a standard poodle that they need, they lots of activity, lots of exercise. Otherwise they're too smart and they go a little bit neurotic if they don't have that.
Oh yeah, they need it. They've got to have that movement. And Francois wasn't playing with nobody. He would come in and not go into everybody's bedroom like, it's time. What you doing? Why are you still in the bed? For real. It was just my daddy said one time, I called my dad Cool Carl. He said, can you just stop the Francois from jumping up and down on the windows, the door, because it was an aluminum door on the outside of the porch. It was a hoot. And Daddy would say, would you stop this? But we wouldn't. Because me and my mom, we loved watching him go up and down so fast, so quickly. It was just up and down, up and down. Where'd you get the energy? First of all,
I know.
Well, I'll always remember that.
You must have fed him. I don't know. What did you feed him? Did you feed him good food? Did you feed him lots of?
Oh yeah. Honey, let me tell you something. That was Miss Pauline. That was my mom's job, honey. She loved that dog. And she took care of I would go and walk him and play with them and sit in the living room or on the porch or whatever with them and talk. And we would just, me and the dog, kick it. But they had everybody had their own relationship. Daddy had his relationship with the dog. Everybody had their own relationship, which is really cute.
Yeah.
We of that animal, and he was really our family. Nothing could come in that house without him jumping up and down, letting the whole neighborhood know that there was something coming to our house.
Yeah, sounds like a good dog.
Yeah, I was. So how did you get into this? What made you decide to go into this industry?
So, like I said, I was really looking for a career where I could, provide healthcare, but also like provide pain relief by supporting the body with like physical touch, which sounds kind of weird, but that was something that was super important to me. Just wanted to do as much as possible, like do good in the world. And, and making animals happy is something that is an obvious way to do good and make people happy. Because if you make their animals happy, then humans are happy.
That's real. And they do. They deserve the love that they give.
Yeah.
Right. And and just being there and observing their behavior and looking at my grandmother and her behavior around him. It was just the whole thing was that the love and the tenderness that on both parts of everybody. Everybody had their own relationship with Francois.
Yeah.
How do you train children how to be good parents to their dogs?
I mean, I think certainly doing things like encouraging them to have responsibilities, and they're usually within like their own, capability, but it could be anything from every day you have to, feed this dog or this cat, or if you want a cat, you have to like make sure to scoop the litter box, making sure that you give them medication if they need it. And like I said, it just helps with, teaching the kids responsibility. And it's a good thing. I think such a good thing. And not only that, but apparently kids who grow up with dogs have better immune systems and have less stress. So mean, that's such a great thing too.
Mm. Hmm. I sometimes wonder when we've separated those pups from their families to never see them again in many cases. Just, is there anything that people do or recommend on how to treat that new um, family member, how to bring them into the family and getting them adjusted? And are there are there less times that we have with our dogs or cats, or how do we manage those relationships, because they are.
Yeah, no, I think especially with like puppies, we know like exposing them to as much different situations and surfaces as possible. So sorry, surfaces sounds kind of weird, but what I mean is like, for example, when I tell people when they get a puppy, not only do the obvious things like pretend to like, you know, all the time like touch their toes, so they don't get afraid of a nail trim when they're older, touch their ears so they're okay with touching their ears, introduce them to a bunch of different people, that kind of socialization stuff that's people are often hear. One of the things I recommend is also introducing them to like weird and scary surfaces. So they have a lot of confidence like as they age. So for example, like what that would mean is you have a puppy and you go put them on and stand them up on an air mattress. If you're outside, walk on a variety of different surfaces, like walk over that scary grate that maybe moves a little bit and makes some noise, and it's only going to make your dog more confident. And the most confident dog is the one that, when they're an adult, is going to be the most secure in the household and less likely to have behavior problems and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. What made you decide to go into this industry?
Yeah. No, I wanted to really help, animals as much as possible, and especially dogs and cats, and wanted them to make them feel good and move well and make sure that they, are happy and healthy.
Mhm. One of the things that I found interesting with the dog, with Francois, was that he needed a lot of attention. He wanted to make certain that he was a member of the family. He wanted to be there, even though in the kitchen, my mother hated it when he would come in the kitchen. We were having dinner, and she would say, Francois, you can't be in here now. And so he would sit in the den at the doorway looking into the kitchen, but he would never go in because Pauline would not allow.
That's a good dog.
Pauline would not let that dog into her kitchen. She's like, I don't think so. You better figure it out. But it was a beautiful thing. Watch it. It was comical, actually. It was free theater.
Yeah.
Then how do we train our kids to really understand how to bring those young pups or kittens into the fold? How do we do that? What should a new quote unquote animal parent be doing to bring that animal into the family? How do we do that?
Yeah. So I think, it depends on the age of the animal, first of all. So sometimes like waiting a little bit till the dog's a little bit older is a great idea because they're a little bit more trainable. So sometimes you get a puppy and they're just too young to be away from their mama and they are in your home, it's a little bit harder to manage them. But I certainly think waiting until they're a little bit older, bringing them into the house, and just I think sometimes like just total immersion is like the best thing. So bring them in right away. You know what I mean? Unless you don't have other dogs or cats, then you want to make sure to do certain introductions where you
Mm-hmm.
and you can Google it to be 100% certain of how to do it. But making sure that you introduce animals in certain safe ways is a really good thing.
Yeah, and they know what they want. They're very clear in how they do it. Now, you may not appreciate the fact that they're trying to pull the covers off of the bed because they want
Right.
breakfast or something. I mean, those are the things that I absolutely used to love because it was so human like. It's time to get up. You need to get me something to eat. Quit playing with me. I need to go, and it was just, and I haven't had a pet since then.
Oh,
but it was always it was just a treat having them around. I've been
yeah,
considering, I had a couple of cats not too long. Well, I guess it's been about 4 years from now or from then, but they were really, they were really a trip.
yeah.
So I don't know. I think I prefer the dogs to the cats because
Mhm.
they have more of a return in terms of affection in a different manner.
Yeah, I'd say
What would,
so.
what would you say that parents should be considering these these young pups or young kittens and how to make certain that they're growing properly in an environment?
So, it's one of those things that so physically growing with like nutrition is like the first thing I think of there. So making sure that you're always feeding a puppy or kitten food
Hmm.
is a really important thing. And one thing I recently learned, which I didn't know, is that actually our bigger dogs need to grow a little bit slower. So
Mm.
making sure that they actually don't grow too fast. And part of what makes puppy food is it actually in some for the large breed dogs actually slows their growth a little bit so they don't get bone problems later in life. That was something interesting that I recently learned. But certainly doing that is a great thing for the puppy, exposing them to lots of different things, making sure that they're fed a puppy or kitten specific food is also a really smart thing to do.
So basically, you can't give them table droppings. You need to make certain that they have the right food coming
Yeah.
in. Let's talk about what that diet looks like for cats and dogs, because sometimes we think that, oh, we could just throw them a bone or whatever, but is that really what we should be doing in the development of these dogs and cats?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because, certainly like food is love. And I love to feed my animals and give them lots of treats and things like that. Certainly feeding table scraps like gives you lots of behavior problems like begging and issues like that, which people know and they can decide to do that or not. What if they want to do that, they can, right? But like, some of the things that I think of is I like feeding animal specific food that, and it could be home cooked, it could be raw, it could be kibble, or it could be canned, but it's animal specific food because we like a lot of the human foods we eat like may not be that nutritious even for us. Like sometimes we get stuff and isn't you know what I mean? It's late on on a Tuesday and you have to go do something like a takeout, or you can't like we're not home cooking every night like delicious pot roasts and meatball meats that are all really healthy and good for us. And so I think that's really hard because a lot of times when I think of like modern people these days like feeding table scraps, I kind of hope that I like what are you feeding, so I think that there's just a consistency to the dog foods that just makes your life easier. You start feeding table scraps and all of a sudden you have to the next day or that night clean up a little bit of like dog spit up because their stomach was upset because you never knew that whatever you gave it was going to upset it. So I just, just a little bit, make your life a little bit easier. Don't introduce behavior problems by feeding human foods from the table, but also feeding human foods in general. You're just asking for additional problems to make your life a little bit harder.
Mhm. And you know what else is, I think that if when a dog or a cat does not like the food and they walk away many times because they don't like the food,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
How do you get them to change that? And because they've got to eat, they've got to have substance. What is it that keeps them with the proper nutrition and looking, is there a schedule? We eat 3 meals a day, but what is it that we should really be doing with our pets so that they have a good life, not a tummy ache, and they go through their own changes or they're spitting up and because they can't contain whatever. And as a doctor, what are at least maybe 4 things that you could recommend for people to think about in how they take care of their animals?
Yeah. So, one of the things is just like you said, feeding on a schedule is actually a really smart way to feed animals. It actually prevents obesity. Because sometimes, like, especially when the kibble's out in a bowl, you put it out in the morning, it stays out there as a big heaping pile all day. It's almost like you being by a big, bag of chips, and every time you see them, you want to eat it a little bit and eat a little bit. So it actually encourages them to gain weight. So feeding 3 times a day on a schedule, and if they don't eat the food, pick it up and put it away and offer it later. So that's actually a great way to like keep them interested in their food if you kind of like take it away. And then they also like don't overeat. And then I'm a huge fan of supplements. I love supplementing my dog's food, especially like you feed kibble. Sometimes you can't feed, canned food or fresh, one of the best things is a home cook for your dog. And, with using a recipe that's, for sure nutritionally balanced, or using a fresh frozen food or things like that. But sometimes you have a kibble and you want to supplement. And I love supplementing because you can choose to, introduce things that will make your dog's life better. And they could be really specific. So for example, something like fish oil or type 2 collagen is something that I add because it's really good for the joints, really good for, inflammation in the body. And then there's other things like I love adding a muscle supplement. So that's something that I'm like actually hugely passionate about, which is making sure dogs are strong through exercise, but also strong through nutrition. So there's actually a ingredient called phototropin. It's been scientifically proven to build muscle mass in dogs and cats. It's found in something called MYOS PET. If anyone's interested, they can Google MYOS, MYOS PET. But I love doing that because you could just sprinkle a little bit on top of your dog's food. I use it in my own cat because my cat has arthritis. So I love taking, just a normal dog food and supplementing, sprinkling on the MYOS PET, giving them a little bit of fish oil or type 2 collagen. And then what you're doing is you're just kind of like taking that food and like boosting it, but you're boosting it with something that's like works well and is scientifically proven. So you're not wasting your money. So, I'm a big fan of doing that. Like, and that's what I do for my own pets and my own self, like I take vitamins and fish oil and all sorts of things for my own health.
Well, I think there's something just with the 2 dogs that I had. It was just their interest was about being in charge of the household. They were always in charge. They could strut to the door and make sure that whoever that was coming to the house, he had to see who it was and to make sure that this was something that was going to be okay. And he would go back in the house to my mom or dad, whoever was home, and say, basically, who's at the door? Y'all better go check it out. And he was just relentless. He was just relentless. It was such a hoot. But, and then we had a boxer when I was younger, much younger, but that didn't last well because he was so arrogant and wanted to be in control all the time. The boxer versus the poodle. I mean, it was deep trying to deal with those 2 animals.
I bet the poodle, I could see why the poodle won. Like poodles are, they certainly are like, they want to be in charge. They want to be number one, leaders of the pack. And like you were his pack, like you said, like you were working for him. Like you're a guest in his house.
Right. And you better believe it. Yeah. And then he would just jump up and down. I mean, literally barking the whole time now and go up and down, up and down, up and down, and up and down. If the postman or somebody come, it was a hoot. And anybody scared of you? It's just a little poodle. What you're not the boxer, buddy.
Right.
It was really wonderful. But when you were growing up, did you think that you were going to be a doctor for pets and would you to take care of? How did you go into this whole area?
I didn't grow up like that, thinking that. I wasn't the type of kid who had like career aspirations until I was later. And I had to realize I had to like make money and have a real job, after college. But, I just loved being around animals. And like I said, my family was the type of family where my mom was always adopting stray animals. So randomly a rabbit would show up, or another dog, or a cat. She always found them. They always found her, I guess. Like we'd be driving and she'd happen to catch a dog, and then we'd have to like care for the dog. And so she was one of those types of people, just kind of collector of animals. And like I said, I grew up in a family that you had responsibilities. Like we had chores, and it just happened to be like those were my chores, was like taking care of the animals. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I didn't always want to be a veterinarian. Like that happened later in life. Like I said, when I was soul searching in my early 20s, trying to be like, well, how do I, I like all these sorts of things, and how do I put them together?
That's great. And so now here you are, this veterinarian, right? Do you do a lot of traveling and speaking about the whole industry and animals and how we are now, and what they're eating now versus what they used to eat years ago? I mean, the change is amazing.
Yeah, the change is amazing. I mean, honestly, part of like why I'm here is like I want to spread awareness about keeping animals healthy. Like I really do believe that like we have opportunity as pet parents, and we have a responsibility to like give them the best possible care that we can within our ability. How much time or how much money we have, like within what we can offer, we have to give them the best things. So I really want people to know what are the things that really work. What should you be spending your money on? What should you be doing so that we can actually give the best care to our dogs and cats? And then also making sure that people are aware that as dogs are aging and they're becoming midlife, so around 50 years old. So human age of 50 is midlife. We all of a sudden, our body breaks down. We get gray hair. You wouldn't believe it. Actually, mostly gray. I have more veins than you, so mine's all covered. But we have gray hair. So do they. All of a sudden, we're like our knee hurts. Their knee hurts. They gain weight. We gain weight. So that's happening to your dog and cat. If they're a cat, that's happening at 10. If they're a dog that's under 50 pounds, they're a small dog, like a French bulldog, like a Cocker Spaniel, a Chihuahua. Those dogs are hitting midlife around 10 years old as well. The big dogs. Yeah, like your Francois and your Boxer, those large breed dogs.
Two separate in size. In size, that Boxer was tall, and Francois was like midway.
How much did he weigh? Do you remember?
Girl, no. That was a long time ago. I haven't even lived in South Bend that long. I left South Bend in 1970 or something. And both of them were probably old and dead by the time I got to wherever I was going.
Yeah, but so middle age for one of them was around 10, and then for the smaller one, and then the other one was about, for the Boxer, the big tall Boxer, was around 7, and like they're slowing down, and you may not realize it, but there's stuff going on behind the scenes that you don't know. Like in addition to the weight gain, in addition to the changes in vision and hearing and their gray hair, they're losing muscle. Like, did you know? Like no one knows that. Like no one talks about that. Even most veterinarians don't tell pet parents that, and then don't tell them that there's things you could do about it. Like I said, supplement for the joints, like type 2 collagen fish oil, supplement the muscles with that MYOS PET. Like again, like there's stuff you could do because their bodies are changing in midlife. And why do we care? Well, because when they're seniors, like we want to make sure that they're not frail. We want to make sure that they're not painful. We want to make sure that they're living long and healthy lives.
And I've also had cats too, which was very different than the dog. I mean, very different. And the peace with the cats is so different than the dogs. And after a while down the road, I was like, I get it now. There's a whole, if you want to run up and down the street, fine. But you're not going to get that with those other animals. They're not going to do those kinds of things. But those two dogs, they were ready to go and in control and aggressive and had an opinion, basically, because they'd be barking all the time. But that was very interesting by comparison with the cat,
Hmm.
because the cat just wanted to just be chill, go and saunter on to the front door or to the window to look out. But there was a different behavior with them. It was comical, but very interesting in watching.
Yeah. No, cats are certainly, I mean, they have their little zoomies that they'll do every once in a while, but certainly not the athletes that dogs are. But it's so sweet. I mean, I have a cat now and I love him so very much. Like I said, he's like, to me, he's like one of the best animals and also fits my
Right,
life. I can't have a
right.
dog now. Like I'm too busy. Like I can't be home, 2 or 3 times a day, and I don't have enough time to give a dog the amount of attention they need in terms of like walking. And I can barely even walk for myself right now, or on a weekend. Like I'm busy. So a cat right now, like I want an animal around me. I want to have animal energy, and a cat's just a little bit easier and more compatible with my lifestyle right now.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty. One of the things, I had a cousin who elder, and she had a cat, but she and that cat were like frick and frack.
Yeah.
That cat would, you walk into the living room, honey, Aunt Helen be sitting in the living room, that cat would be right there where Aunt Helen was. I mean, it was just really interesting how they depended on one another,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, cats are, they say that cats are, well, dog is like a pack animal, right? So we all know that. And cats necessarily like aren't pack animals, but I really do believe that they like bond really, they could like pair bond.
Mhm.
Um,
Wait a minute,
really.
what did you say, pair bond?
Yeah, like pair bond, like
What is
if
that?
you're like a duo, like you're a duo, like
Okay.
I've pair bonded with like hopefully my partner. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Okay. I just want to make
um,
sure I heard and knew what you were talking about. Okay.
you're not a pack. You don't have I'm not pairing with like 5 other dogs. I'm like pair bonding with one other dog or cat.
Mhm.
So I think because kitties are more like that, like they're more likely to find one person that they really seek out. But yeah, no, cats are really great. And yeah, I could talk about cats all day.
I love it. And you know what I've always wondered, and I've never paid any attention to it until this conversation, but do people actually walk their cats? Like
uh,
dogs, we walk our dogs. Do we walk our cats?
yeah, they do. And if you harness, so you put the cat in a harness, or you can harness train them as a kitten, and they learn to walk like a dog, and they can go outside in a safe way by going on a leash and harness. Oh, Marcia, we lost you.
Stage. I don't know what's going on. Sorry about that.
happy you're back.
Yeah, we just keep it moving, girl.
Good.
So in let's have we got about a couple of minutes left. Give us some takeaways that parents should be talking to their children about how to manage their cats or dogs.
Yeah, so their own animals. I think, like I said, it's one of those things where you have to give them the responsibility for taking care of the animal by giving them chores. I think that was the way that I learned. It did a really good, really was really good for me. And yeah, so that's something I really would suggest. And then
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I'm sorry, your internet is not working.
Yeah, I don't know what, I don't know what it. Technology is a beast, girl. You got to go through it, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, because then when you start calling Comcast or somebody, whoever you use, like, okay, why do I have to keep going through this with my doggone internet? Just, I don't know. Anyway, so we got a couple of more minutes. Give us three things or four things that you think are some from parents and children who are hosting dogs and cats.
Yeah. So I think certainly it's hard because dogs and kids speak a different language, and sometimes you may not realize it, but the child may accidentally be making your dog a little bit anxious just with their unpredictable, unpredictability of the way that they're moving, or sometimes they'll be speaking really excited tones because they're super excited to see the dog or the cat. So they'll do things like, "Oh, look at Fluffy! Oh my god, I love him!" and not realize that they're kind of amping up your dog. And another thing too is I always teach kids, whenever they're interacting with a dog, especially when they don't know, touch the safe zones. And for example, you always go to the top of the head to pat the dog. A lot of people do. And that's actually a very kind of dangerous zone for them. And it could be a point where they don't like to actually be touched up there unless they know the person and it's your dog. And that's a different story. But a lot of dogs, especially if you have a kid and they haven't had dogs before, they don't know the dog, it's really saying to instead, why don't you put your hand out and let the animal come to you? Make sure that you're not speaking in a voice that's super loud, because it just gets the dog kind of amped up. So certainly kind of just taking a minute or two just to tell a kid, how do you interact safely with the dog, is a really important thing to do. Because you don't want there ever to be a bad situation where someone accidentally gets bit, or there's some kind of issue and it could have really been prevented. And as much as possible, I think there are a lot of amazing free resources out there on this. So if anyone is at all interested, they could do that. And then also I have a blog posts on my website. So my website also has blog posts as well. So if anyone finds any of this stuff interesting, all the stuff I talked about with when's your dog midlife, what supplements do I like, other things that are going on in veterinary medicine, like go to my website, and happy to say it's Strut Animal, and that's
what is it? Say it again.
It's Strut, STRUT. And Strut because that's the name of my little vet clinic, and a happy dog struts or a happy cat struts. And so, all the stuff that I talk about, I have a blog post, and people can read there. Like, please go there. Please visit that. I have great picks for my top supplements. If you couldn't catch what I was saying, or you can't remember what we talked about, like go to my website. Like I have some great supplement ideas there.
Would you type it in on the side?
Happy to.
So people get your website and can contact you?
Yeah, and I'm great. Happy to answer questions to the best of my ability, meaning that it's in my area of veterinary medicine, which is physical rehabilitation. So movement in dogs, keeping dogs strong, keeping dogs healthy. Please reach out. I'm always happy to help where I can. I can't ever give, I always say like I'm a veterinarian, but like not your veterinarian, because I don't know your
right.
dog's individual needs, but I can answer some general questions. And like I said, blog posts, I have them. Please read them. I do put a lot of time and effort into that. And if anyone has any suggestions for stuff that they would love to hear or learn more about, send me a message too. And I'm happy to try to cover that in those blog posts.
Where are you located?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. So you're not,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're still close.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you want to just put your contact information, maybe type it up on the thing, and so that the audience will be able to see it? That would be great.
Yes. And I'll even put some of those supplements that I discussed. If you don't want to go to my website, I'll put them in here as well. So for example, that MYOS PET, I'll put on here. I'll put in type 2 collagen, which actually MYOS PET doesn't just make an awesome scientifically proven muscle supplement. They also do a great collagen type 2 supplement. So I use that stuff for I recommend it to my patients, and then my own cat is on it. For he's 11, so he's about a human equivalent of 60, so he's losing muscle. So my kitty's on it. So type 2 collagen is a great recommendation too. But like I said, visit my website. Yeah.
And so did you post? I didn't see where you posted. What's the website?
It's strutanimal.com. I think maybe. I did private chat. That's why I got it. So I'm not sure why I can't. It says I have to be a YouTube or connect to YouTube to join the live chat.
Okay.
I will try to connect to YouTube.
Okay. Well,
but like I said, Strut
Animal.
Happy dog Strut Animal, STRUT. It's here my scrub too. But like I said, if let's see here if I could actually log in, because I want people to this information should be this information should be available to everybody. It says, unfortunately, I cannot. Let me do this. I got an error. I did log in to YouTube and post a comment, but I'm getting error messages. So yeah, I'm not sure it's saying share referral. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how to share it, but like I said, Strut Animal is a great place to start.
Is that strutanimal.com?
That's right.
Okay. All right. And so I think I can put that down here.
Oh, thank you, Marcia.
www.strutanimal.com.
That's right.
Okay. And
let's see if you.
Is that right?
That's right.
All right.
You can post. See, technology there was on your side. I had internet, but I couldn't chat. But you have no internet. You can chat at least.
At least it just worked. And whoever made it happen is all right, as long as it gets there.
Exactly.
Right? Well, so before we go, let's talk about, because we got a couple of minutes. What made you decide that you wanted to become is it a veterinarian?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a veterinarian vet. Like I said, grew up with animals, loved being around them. And
but wait a minute. But wait a minute,
Yeah.
when you say I grew up around animals, what does that mean? What kind of animals were you around? Where were you where all the animals were?
Well, we had a bunny, we had a bunch of birds, probably like 5 or 6 birds. We had rats, we had dogs, all
Did you
the
say rats?
rats, which
Did you
my
say
mom,
rats?
yeah, yes, my mom rescued rats.
R-A-T-S, rats. Okay,
Yes,
I just want to make sure.
yes, rats. And then we had 3 different Dobermans, and my mom loved to have little white fluffy dogs. So
I
that was her
love
big joy in life, was to have a little white floof. She had that. We had cats. We had fish. And then I was the kind of kid, I loved to be around horses. So we didn't ever own a horse because they're very expensive, but I used to like go to like barns and like hang out with horses and like work at a barn during the summer. Yeah, so it's just around all kinds of different animals growing up.
And so and then it turned into a whole business model.
Yeah, that was much later. After
But basically that's it. You turned it into a business, your passion into a business model.
dogs pay the bills. I'm very lucky.
I
I'm a
love it.
very lucky person.
Well, you are because you're passionate about the animals, and your
Yeah.
passion is what's carrying it on.
Yeah.
That's beauty. Not everybody finds their passion, number one.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
like I said, I didn't always know. So sometimes, you may be a little bit confused in life and may not sure, where you can go. Vet school seems like it's a really hard road, but and it's very expensive. So it's hard. But I am really lucky to have one of the best jobs on the planet.
Well, and that's the beauty of it. That when you get up every morning and you go and do something that you love, not everybody can see that. Not everybody has felt that. Not everybody has had that experience. So those are beautiful things that you can keep and take with you and share and show people how they can be the best they can be with their own vision. So we want to thank you for sharing with us and all of the fun that you're having with all these beautiful animals.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, Marsha. I really appreciate it.
Can you give us Thank you. And just stay in touch. I'm sure that you're going to have a lot more new things coming up and just keep us posted.
All right, I will. Have a great night.
Okay, Dr. Kelly Fishman, thank you so much. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you as
Thank you,
well.
ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you next week. Good evening. Okay. In stream. All right. Thank you.